Hello, everyone, and welcome to Move, Crush, Count. This is a podcast sponsored and produced by J&L Marketing. I'm your host, Scott Joseph. The title of today's interview, How to Take Control and Shift Your Life. My name's Scott. We got Anthony Trucks here, and he's going to talk to us about how to achieve your dreams. Welcome, Anthony Trucks.
Hey, thank you for having me, man.
Love it. Anthony is a former NFL player, American Ninja Warrior, international speaker. He's also a best-selling author. He's helped thousands of people all over the world close the identity gaps that are responsible for the shortfalls on their path to success. So I want to thank you again for joining us here on Move, Crush, Count. Let's jump right in.
Let's jump right in. It's a good name, Move, Crush, Count. I like that.
It fits kind of like a football thing. It's pretty. Football players can be aggressive, and I feel like it's kind of a.
It works, man.
Aggressive.
I'm all for it. Crush is a good word. It's a good. I played linebacker, so it fits even more.
I love it. So there might be a lot of people out there that don't know who you are, your background. I do. I find it extremely inspiring, very motivating. I have to tell you, I've watched a couple of the YouTube videos, and it's a little emotional. So I don't want to limit that. I want, before we dive in, because you've got some very specific things that can help our audience go to the next level, whether it's getting unstuck or just achieving their dreams. But before we get in that, I want them to know who you are, where you've come from, where you're at today, because I don't want any second guessing or doubting as to what's going on here. So fill us in.
Yeah. So I guess my base story, where I came from, which is kind of the important one, right? What do I know? Yeah. Where did I come from? So I was given away into foster care at 3 years old, endured a really heinous system. I was eventually placed into a home, which was my final home, the sixth home of all, and was with a really poor, all-white family as a Black man. So a lot of weird issues of diversity and, poverty, we'll call it. There's a lot of weird stuff I had to endure. And so for a lot of years, it was just a struggle. And then at 14, I finally got adopted. So knew that the place I woke up this morning, for sure get to go to sleep tonight. And I tried my hand at football, which I was not very good at, because anytime you try something new, you're not very good at it to begin with. So I tried my hand and I was like, oh, I'm not very good. And I actually, after a couple of years, checked out. I was like, I'm done doing this. My mom had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, my adoptive mom. I wasn't good at football. My family was just we weren't academic people at all. So next thing I knew, I'm just kind of sitting there going, I don't know. And then I had a weird moment that woke me up, and I was able to actually get to the point of having a desire to be great at something. And I chose football. And next thing I know, I was leaned into it in a really difficult, area, but I found a way to find pride in it. And I got great, so much so that I got a college football scholarship to the University of Oregon. So that's why you see a helmet over here. And then from there, I was able to go up there, and my high school sweetheart and I were stayed together, had a kid at 20 years old. So my college career was with a kid. She also had a kid. She graduated just like I did, though, with her master's. Met my real dad at 20 years old after, having a great career in college. I had the chance to play in the NFL. In my third year, I tore my shoulder, came home, had a massive crisis. We had 2 more kids. Marriage fell apart, family fell apart, body fell apart. Everything sucked. It was really, really dark place, like suicidal, I guess, I didn't want to be here kind of thing. My mom, unfortunately, passed away in 2014, and it took me under a year and a half to finally wake up and go, I don't like this life and trajectory I'm headed down. Something's got to change. And I realized that I was the common denominator in all of my problems, whether I allowed it or I was the cause of it. And when I finally owned that, it gave me a permission internally to start working on things that were pretty hard to work on. And fast forward, 10 months from there, I got my marriage back together after 3 years divorced. I have a family that's locked in tight. We have a God-centered family. I have a business that thrives. I'm in good shape. I get a chance to actually go out into the world and do great things because I solved a lot of problems that most people don't, and found a way to make it of use and of value to the world. So I help people make shift happen, and it all starts at an identity level.
First off, this is being recorded not even a full week after Oregon beat Ohio State, which I grew up.
Yes,
I grew up in Ohio State, so that was a crushing loss. But congratulations to you.
That was a good one. That was one that they. Oh man, I was hoping that they didn't give it up at the end, and they held on. It's funny. I'm over my I just moved to this house. It's a brand new studio, and I haven't hung things up, and I can see right past where you can't. It's a picture I have of Autzen Stadium that I can't wait to hang up in here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Listen, you glossed over a couple things. When you were young, and before you went into your adopted home, You weren't treated. People hear, "Oh, I grew up in a rough thing, and I was past." I think that's one thing, and I doubt if people fully understand some of the things that you went through. Just
Mhm.
quickly fill us in a little bit on that, because
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
there are
There's
people out there, right, that feel a little hopeless,
a hopeless man.
and hopeless comes in a lot of different comfort zones, right? You could be a successful person and feel hopeless that you can't take something to the next level as well. So it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be the person that's down and out as well. I mean, that comes through all different stages, but what you went through and overcame uh, goes above and beyond. I would even imagine what most people would think would be really bad.
yeah. It's true, man. For me, so when I was in those situations, the families that I was around, they weren't very good people. So like one house, I was put in a chicken coop and forced to chase chickens to earn meals. So if I caught a chicken, I earned a meal. If I didn't catch a chicken, I didn't. And I would sneak out in the middle of the night, I remember, and I would like try to get food. And if I got caught, I got beat. If I didn't get caught and I got food, I would hoard it because I didn't know when I'd get more food. So I'd take as much as I could. And I would, I'm a little 4 or 5 year old kid, and I would hide it. They knew it, so they find it tucked away behind pillows and the sides of walls, and I'd get beat again. So that was one house. One house put me in a shopping cart. I remember they kept pushing me down a hill towards moving traffic, like cross traffic. So I could easily went across the street and got sideswiped by a car and died. But I remember they just kept doing it. They kept laughing. It was a funny joke. And then one house, they put me in the front of the house on a curb, and they forced me to lick the bottom of the neighbor kid's shoes. And like, I remember my tongue bleeding in the process. So this is all before 6 years old. So I had a lot of reason to not be a very happy human being. And on top of that, the one person you want to love you, your mom, she's MIA, and she's the cause for all of it.
So what happened for you? Before we get into some, because I know in your book, and by the way, he's got a new book out called Identity Shift, Upgrade how you operate to elevate your life, right? Upgrade
Mm.
how you operate to elevate your life. I want to make sure I get that correct.
Yeah.
And you talk about 3 steps that people have got to take control and to shift their life. But before we get into those specific steps, like where was the shift for you? Like what I hear that you bottom out a little bit, and once you get into the NFL and that cuts short and stuff like that. But how did you get started in the change? What was the trigger for you that got that going?
Yeah, it was I woke up, it was January 1st, 2016. And I was at this time still divorced. I'd got a contract in the corporate realm, and I made some money. And so like I wasn't as, I guess, broke, we'll call it, the time, but I was still running around doing dumb stuff. I guess the best way to explain it. Like I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing in terms of like away from my faith. So I had multiple partners, and I'm just, hanging out and drinking and all this stuff that just distracts you from the reality of the pain. And I just remember waking up on New Year's Day, and I remember like we had smoked hookah, I want to say, the night before. We had drank because it's New Year's Eve. So I was like hungover. The taste in my mouth was weird. Just this strange woman from Russia, of all places, laying next to me. Couldn't even speak my language. And I remember walking in the bathroom, and then there's like that mirror that's looking at you. And so I remember like having both my hands on a sink and then looking dead in the mirror and just really having this heavy weight of shame for the person I was looking back at. Just wasn't a guy that, honestly, I tell people I was not a guy that I would ever want my daughter to be with. It was not someone I would want my boys to emulate in any way. My mom would not approve, and my God wouldn't let me into heaven with me acting like this. And so it was like this really interesting moment of, you suck. And if you don't change something, this is going to be the path you head down. And I don't want to even think about the place that path ends.
Now, for you to take this shift and move forward, was a lot of this self-taught, or did you have any like mentors or help along the way? Anybody that
I had books. I mean, we all have books. That was kind of the thing. Is I had a lot of books. I had a lot of, the courses I would take. I had done all that. I invested in all of those, and it was all that same thing. However, I find that the interesting issue we have is that, just like I was, a lot of us are, we have this, what I call shelf esteem, right? I take this information, I put it on the shelf of my house. I buy the book and it sits on the shelf,
Yeah.
and then we don't read it. If we do read it, if we're one of the, say, 10% of people who will actually read the book, we get it and it sits on the shelf of our mind. It's only about 1 to 3% of people that actually apply the things they learn, which is why they're the 1 to 3%. And so for me, I had the information, but the problem was I was not the person to apply it yet. All the tools, all the insight, not the right person, not the right identity inside. So it's kind of like giving a hammer to a baby and saying, build a house, or giving a hammer to a construction working man or woman saying, build a house. It's the right person with the right tool that can take care of the job.
So let me ask you this. I'm sitting here thinking, all right, you overcome a ton that happens to you at a very early age, which that's a major challenge. You turn yourself into an NFL player, star in college, you get injured. All right. But to achieve just to that level proves that you had the focus and self-discipline to accomplish a dream. So now it's taken all away. You crash back down. In your opinion, do you feel like that helped you achieve the second dream for yourself, overcome the obstacles again? Were you able to say to yourself, sorry, there's two questions coming here. Were you able to say to yourself, I've done this before and I've accomplished, I've overcome more. I can do this again. And then what do you say to people that have never accomplished the first thing, that think that's just not me, I can't do it?
Yeah. I think for me, the big thing was I didn't reflect upon the stuff I'd done previous. That makes sense. As much as I'd like to be like, I did some great things or reflect upon it. The truth of the matter is, when you're in those moments, you don't think about what you've accomplished in the past. The only thing you have proof of is where you're at right now.
Yeah.
So the thing is when you get tired and get fed up and you get to the point of like, I'm going to work, all that stuff does come bubbling to the top. When you get into work mode, like the rest of the thoughts of how it's not going to go, it does shut down and tuck away, and you can tap into some of that stuff. But the reality is like when I'm in those dark down moments, I'm not thinking about the football stuff and the relationship. I'm not thinking about how good it was, because all I'm doing at that moment is reflecting on how far I've fallen.
Yeah.
And that's a sucky place.
Beating
so those moments,
up.
I didn't even think about it. It was more of like, I don't want to be here. Let me work out of this. And you just start pushing in the right direction.
Yeah, it's good to know. All right. So let's get into these 3 steps. I'm going to ask you, what's the first step every single person must do to shift their life or take it to the next level, get unstuck, whatever it might be for them?
What's the single first step?
Yep.
Oh man, it's going to be ego. It's going to be ego. And the reason it's going to be ego is because there's a lot of things we know we should do. We hear we should do. People tell us to do. And we go, I don't want to deal with that, because in accepting that work to do, it means that we have to accept that we're not perfect. We have to accept that there's things we haven't done great. And as much as everybody says, I'm not perfect, the moment they are presented with an area that they aren't perfect, they battle it. The ego rears its head because no one wants to feel less than. So what ends up happening is I need to improve, but I will not give myself permission to improve. Scratch that. My ego will not give me permission to improve. So the first step for all the things, it's always a matter of like, pull the ego back so that you can look at yourself and see yourself for who you really are, not who you keep telling yourself you are, or distracting and avoiding the fact of who you are. The moment you go in and go, that's really who I am, now you have an opportunity to improve your life. But that's the first step, and most people never take it.
So I might come back to this first step. It just depends on what you say is the second step. So what's the second step, would you say?
C. Second step is a C. Because once the ego's down, like I kind of alluded to it, once the ego's down a little bit, you can get to that point of seeing. And seeing is an interesting thing. There's a statement that I love, and it is hard to see the label when you are inside of the jar. Because we all have these lives we're living, and we don't quite literally see the effect we have on ourselves and other people. We're tornadoes running around, and people try to tell us, hey, you're doing this wrong. You slow down. You're being too open. You're giving too much. You're taking too much, whatever it is. I don't need any help, and they won't see it.
Yeah. And
so what happens is we run around with the same situation cycling over and over again, the same pain, same anguish, same disdain, same being broke. And we wonder why. And the funny thing is, some of us will actually go do work. We'll go and start working towards stuff, and we'll go, but I've been doing work. I've been doing all this stuff. Why don't I have more money? Why am I not happy? I've been doing all this stuff. And the reality is you skip that C step, because there is a step of work. It's the shift stage. But the problem is, if you haven't done the proper work in the C stage, you won't know what your work is. You'll have no idea what you need to work on. That is very hard to work on, but that's the stuff that has to be done. That little window there, that area, That's the game changer.
And that's why I wanted to ask that second question, because my question was going to be on the first step is like, man, if all you're doing is basically looking at where you're really at and dropping the ego, naturally, some people might be sitting there going, yeah, I suck. You know, I can't.
That's part of it.
Can't
That's
do
okay.
it.
Because if you don't say that, how will you expect yourself to commit to being better?
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing is we look at other people and say, you suck. And then what do we expect them to do? Just be like, you're right. And do nothing. Like, no, most of the time that you go, you suck, they go, no, I don't. And they battle you. But imagine if that person, you said, hey man, you suck as a dad. You're not doing very good. And he goes, you know what? You're right. I got to work on that. Well, now he could be a better dad. But that person we're talking about, that person's also us though, in a different capacity or the same capacity. And so when we go there, it's going to feel that way. Why wouldn't it? It's an area. Here's the thing. You get to have the pain at a level 2 for a long time. And that pain is the fact that you suck at it and you keep feeling the pain of it in arguments, conversations, craziness, pocketbooks, or you can have a level 10 of pain for like 2 days. So you can have a 2 of pain for the whole year, or a 10 of pain for like a month.
Well, and let's face it, a level 2 of pain probably isn't going to be motivating enough to do anything about it.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That is the thing. And we endure it over and over and over again. It's not until it spikes because we're afraid of going through a 10 of pain for a month, or less if you do it right. And so that in between area, that's where the ego has to pull aside and let the body get that little, oh, you suck as a person there. And now we can work on it. And then it's eliminated forever.
Now, all right. So in an easy way to get to this second step and drop this ego, you'd have all kinds of support and people telling you where you're falling short, I guess. So, and you'd have honest conversations either with them or yourself, right? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah.
But not everybody has that. Not everybody's going to have people telling them what they need to improve or where they're falling short or whatever. So what are some activities or actions, or how do you do that on your own?
To see yourself?
Yeah.
You don't. You can, but you don't. Because if you could, you would already have done it. It's very hard.
So you're saying solicit the feedback.
Oh, I do. Yeah. There's actually parts of we have what's called the shift method it's in the book, but it's the coaching structure we go through. Okay. And I'm really big on getting someone else to tell you what the label of the jar says. Okay. Because that's the person who's going to give you the insight you actually need to move forward.
So what are some of the questions you might ask to get that? What are some of the questions you might ask? Yeah,
there's 10 of them, actually. There's 10 areas we ask questions. And the 10 areas are faith, family, health, friends, emotions, career, education, finances, escape, and lift. And we go through all of them. But like some of the questions, they're essentially, how would you rate me at this and why? And it sounds simple, right? But here's the crazy thing. There's 10 of them. And when you preface this conversation, there's a way we preface it to where you prepare yourself to handle hard feedback and you prepare them to be able to give it. But in the beginning, they don't know if you're being honest about it. So the first couple of questions, they're testing you. And then eventually they go, wow, they're really going to let me say this. And then the next, question 5, question 6, it gets a little bit deeper. By the time you get to question 10, if you've done it right, they're pouring out stuff that is breaking your soul, for being honest. And then what you do is you go, okay, great. Thank you for doing that. Can we go back to the top and see if there's anything to add? And they'll go back and you'll find they'll always add to question 1, question 2, less by question 3 and question 4, because they started at that point. But they, in the beginning, were figuring out, so you've got to go back through. And so what happens is you'll get this information, and the questions you ask are ones that are like, why this? Why that number? Why is your response that? And if you let them just flow, you'll get the gold. Now, here's the interesting thing. Just because someone says this doesn't mean you have to work on it. I think you have to first pick some people you respect. Don't just pick people that are off the street, right? The people that you respect, that know you in certain areas. But 2, realize that everybody else is fighting their own battles too. Sometimes their stuff gets into your stuff. You don't have to work on everything. But if you hear 5 people all say the exact same thing, you might want to look at that and go, oof, that's someone I might want to take care of.
I would imagine a lot of people struggle a little bit with this step. In other words, it's not easy to hear. It's not easy to always take. Now, if you're asking for it, but in your experience, do you see a lot of people who even ask for it, and then all of a sudden they're like, they still want to be in denial with it? They still, how do they handle that? How would you coach someone through that?
Well, the funny thing is there's this feeling of, if I give up that, I give up everything of me. It's always, I read somewhere a statement that the next you is going to cost the old you, right? Or the next life's going to cost your old life.
Yeah.
And what essentially it's saying is you got to give up everything to get everything. And a lot of people aren't prepared to do that. And for them to give this area up to succeed in this space, it's to give up everything, right? So that's the area where most people struggle is like, I got to give everything up to get this. I don't know if I'm prepared to do that. So they will fight and they will battle, and there will be this really interesting kind of like argument inside. And so what they do is they are not okay with doing it. So they stay in their pocket because the evil I know is better than the evil I don't. This pain that I know is better than the pain that I don't. And so continuously people end up living in these spaces for years on end because there's too much of a fear of losing whatever self I have now, even if part of myself sucks.
Right. What's the next step?
Shift.
So how do you mean?
Well, let's go back, not even too far back. But for me, the goal for me is to get people into what's called your zone identity. I call it the ideal zone identity. The ideal means perfect, right? And that zone is the zone that you've got to be in to have the life you want. I believe that you have to have an identity that matches your dream if you want the dream to come true, right? If I have this dream and it doesn't match the identity, then what happens is I'll never actually get the dream because, well, I'm not the person for it. If I do get it, I'll lose it because I don't know how I got it in the first place, or I'll self-sabotage because I don't think I deserve it.
Right.
So I've got to be that identity, right? And so what I look at is there's a version of us, an identity level that deserves that, has that. It's all different. It's all beautiful at that level. And for what a lot of us, we don't go in and realize what it is. So what I look at is we have to find out in the first stage, see what our zone lags are. It's the first stage. It's the zone lags we see, right? C stage. Second is a personalized shift plan. There's got to be a plan in place for you to make this shift, for you to become that person. Because then if you become that person, you have the things you want. Because if you become the person, you'll do what that person does and it'll lead to you having those things. It's pretty straightforward. So it's like, all right, simple. Well, what do I got to do? Well, now what happens in the shift phase is you have to craft a plan of what will be done so you can become. Because we every day are being somebody in motion. We're just being this person. This being has led us to today become these guys. So Scott, me and you are who we are. We've become this person right in this moment because of who we've been being. So if I want to become that person later, I got to figure out how I must be being throughout that time, so to speak, right? So the shift is like, I'm crafting that ideal identity. What are the components of their identity that I want to live into? And that's the big thing, is figuring out what that is. And it will feel out of character.
So what would be an activity? What would be an exercise? So you play football, right?
Yep.
All right. So I remember I watched one video where you said you made the determination as a young kid to not suck at it and to be great at it. Now, obviously you're working out, you're doing your things too, but you also did skills that were improving muscle memory stuff, the catching of the pass, the route running stuff that you were doing as well, right? Are there muscle memory things or something like that? I'm not saying, I don't want to make it act like it's got to be physical, but even mental, that help us do this shift, create this identity, and have it stick.
Yeah, 100%. We've already done that. Every place that we are in our life right now that we have stuck, we've done that. It's a habit. The habits lead to your identity. The problem is, well, we know about habits. We don't understand the real information behind the scenes of choosing the right habits that'll lead to the right identity.
So that's what I'm asking, I guess, is let's assume I'm a person that's stuck where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm successful, but I went levels much higher, right? But man, I'm plateaued. I can't get out of this. I'm in a rut, whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Yep.
What do I got to do? All right. So now I've identified.
You pulled the ego back. You took a look at your stuff you got to work on.
I did all that.
Now we got to craft a plan. And the plan must be out of character. It's like, hey, what are the things that I don't do now that feel awkward? Because out of character isn't a bad thing. Out of character is good, because out of character means a new character from when I'm in, which can be a good character above where you're at. So that's the thing. And this is as simple as this. There are exercises we do, but here's one we do. I actually sit down and have people research. Go and find individuals in the world where you would admire parts of what they're doing. Like, I admire The Rock and how he shows up for his family. I do not want to operate how he does at 4 a.m. and juggle all the crap he does. Right? There's part of the identity I like, part I don't. There are people who run great businesses, but they're horrible husbands. I would love to see how they run the business, but not how they're a husband, right? So there's these areas where we can go and research individuals and garner information and go, this is what I want to comprise my identity of, these different segments, like Frankenstein it, and go, okay, great. Now, what are the things I must do? And it's not the things that I want to do. It's a very big vernacular difference there. It's not the things I want to do. It's what must I do? Because the things that you must do will not feel like things you want to do. Because it might mean having a hard conversation with your wife and owning up that you're not a very good husband. It might mean going to work and saying, hey, people, I've been a poor boss. It might be, who knows, owning up to the fact that you eat trash all day. It's why you're fat, like whatever it may be, right? But now that you've done these things and you've actually created this, okay, these are the things I must do. Now you have to go do it.
Yeah.
Because that's the big thing. Action ends suffering. We all have this suffering. The world is a bunch of people. We're all sitting in it going, I don't like my life, but taking no proper actions. They have, even a lot of them, they'll get great plans. They'll get all the stuff they're supposed to do and they'll put in their calendar and be in their planner for tomorrow, and doesn't get done, and doesn't get done, and doesn't get done.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons our audience might be listening, Scott, how is this going to help me sell more product? How is this going to help me elevate my business? Well, to me, that's an easy answer, right? Because I think anytime you want to elevate your life, if you want to elevate your business, it has to start personally. You have to elevate your life. It doesn't happen. Those aren't in silos. I think anybody that's done a great job in business is following these same things.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it's what part of your life, like you had mentioned, do you want to improve on? Right. Yeah. So it's the same steps. And so if it's working out, right, and you want to improve your physical fitness, it's one thing. So you're basically saying, all right, so I exercise clearly, not to the level you do. All right. I can tell you that right now. However, I struggle with the motivation on that. All right. And so, I have to force myself. I always talk to these people that work out every day. I'm like, how do you commit to it? Oh, I love it. I love it. And I think to myself, because I can't go in there and half-ass that. So when I do it, I'm exhausted and I don't love it. Yeah. So how do you tell someone like me, you're saying just do it?
Yeah. It's the thing.
Is that because you're with Oregon and Nike?
No. It's not just do it, right? Because the thing is to just do it is doing it like whatever, I'll figure it out. And it's not. The idea is doing it with an intention. If you've done the previous things in the right manner, what ends up happening is you enter in this moment and go, I know why I'm doing this. Because we all have to do stuff every day. You don't just stop and sit in your hands and do nothing. You got to do work. But the problem is we don't know if the work we're doing is the right work to do. If you've done the method properly, you show up to that moment and go, all right, I got a plan. I trust it. I know what to do. I just got to go to work. And it's kind of this thing where you shouldn't be focusing on the end destination anymore. The idea is what's at hand, right? I tell people you got to fall in love with the day and not the destination. Because if you fall in love with the destination, you will hate the day and you'll never reach the destination. But if I love the day, if I love what happens every day, then what happens is over time, I'm making progress unconsciously, we'll call it, towards my destination. And next thing I know, I wake up and go, holy crap, I've loved every day. And look at this. Now I'm here doing this. I have this, all that. So it's not a matter of just do it, but it's also a matter of understanding what it'll feel like when you start the process. And what it'll feel like is like a 10 out of 10 of pain. I try it. It's a 10 of pain. It sucks. And then you go, you know what? I don't want to do this. It sucks. Why would I do this again? The wise person goes, I'm going to do it again. And everybody else goes, you're crazy. No, I'm not. I do it again. It's a 9 of pain. Why are you doing that? It's a 9 of pain. Stop. No, I got to keep going. What do you mean? Are you masochistic? Is something crazy with you? I got to keep going. We keep doing it. And eventually it goes from 9, 8, 7, goes to 0. And that journey we're going on is this process where at 0, we think it's painless. The reality is it's never painless. It's in fact joy. This thing I hated doing. Oh my gosh, do I love doing it now? And now you have the ability to do the same action everybody else is deadly afraid of doing with ease. Yeah. It's where it was hard for you to do it at first. It's now hard for you not to do it. So it gets done with flow, and all of a sudden you have the result. And here's the crazy thing. That process is called the creation process. No matter what goes on, that's you creating something. I did it at 15, became a better athlete in football. I've done it in my post-football career, my business. I've done it in my marriage. Every level I've done, we've all done this. It's this journey. And what ends up happening is You get to this level where when you've created that, you've done that. It's not that I just did that, but I am the human being who does that. So I tell people what you create creates you.
You know, I think about this, and I always take things back to business, and I think of that salesperson, right? Where if you want to sell something, whether it's whatever activities that you need to do and you have to increase them, obviously, to improve. But let's just take the one thing most people cannot stand doing, and that's cold calling.
Yeah.
All right. And when I hear you talk about how most people will give up on that, because I can tell you, while most people may not associate a level 10 pain to cold calling, a lot of people do.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they don't succeed in sales.
Nope.
So what you're saying here applies to so much. Where'd you come up with the shift method?
Though it was actually an accident, man. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't an accident. It was an accident. I found it, but it had always been present. I was in a room with a whole bunch of guys. It was me, Dean Graciosi, Lewis Howes, Trent Shelton, Jeff Walker, Russell Brunson, Ethan Willis, and Brendan Burchard.
It's a hell of a room.
It's a hell of a room, dude. And I say it's a room. It was actually us in like lawn chairs in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We just finished shooting some shotguns and we were eating cookies. And everybody gets a chance to pretty much go around the horn and like tell what you got going on, where you're at, and what you're doing. So I did this, and one of the guys goes, "I don't like it." I go, "What do you mean you don't like it?" He goes, I don't like it. And I go, "That's my life's work, man." He goes, "Yeah, but at the end of the day, there's a message and a messenger." He says, "The messenger is you. You could talk, you can share." He says, "Great, but your message, it's not the right fit. There's something deeper." He goes, "You've gone through all this stuff. You've navigated these parts." He says, "You've gone and navigated past levels that most people never get past. And you've made it here. How? Like, what part of your identity has allowed you to do that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a very interesting, like kind of seed." So I go, "Okay, let me play with the seed and I let it sit." And the next thing I knew, I went back and started to realize, like, yeah, I kind of navigated some things a little differently in many areas of my life that people could benefit from, because I could see where the golden thread was. And it turned into me trying to figure out, well, what's the codification of this? How do I make this a process someone else could kind of take and apply? And so it turned into a method where you could make this identity shift, hence the shift method.
I have to tell you, I'm gonna correct you on one thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing luck about that. You know, you do the one thing. We just had an episode on here about this. You have surrounded yourself with people and have established relationships. And quite honestly, if you didn't have those relationships and didn't have those conversations, that idea may never come. Right?
True.
You're sitting here just talking and collaborating with people and sharing with people, and some of the greatest ideas come that way, and it just come out of nowhere like that. And I love that story. But how did you get into that? I'm curious. How'd you get into that network? How'd you get into that room?
That was an accident, man.
No accidents, buddy.
Yeah, well, I'm a man of faith as well. I believe that nothing's an accident, but it's one of those things where it's the best way for me to frame it up. I used to do this stuff with consulting for fitness because I had a gym. And so at one company, I was introduced to somebody else that does, it's called Fire Alumni. They did a whole bunch of CBEST physical testing for aspiring firefighters. I got brought in to give a presentation on something. So I came and gave a presentation, and one of the guys goes, "Hey man, we should film this all and then put it online and sell it." And I was like, "What are you talking about? That's blasphemy." And he goes, "No, this guy, Brendan Burchard, he teaches you how to do it." So I was like, "All right." And he says, "Go check out Experts Academy." So I go check out Experts Academy, and lo and behold, it's this guy talking about how you can do it all. So I go to the event in Santa Clara because it's about an hour from my home in California. I'm like, I'll go check it out. So I go down. There's a bunch of crazy people jumping around, clapping hands and hugging each other. And I'm like, this is weird. And at one point, like, he's telling me about like how your story works. And he says, go and get into a group of 5 people and tell your story. So I do that. Now I'm just telling my story because it's what I do. It's no big deal. And then later on in the hallway, somebody stops and goes, "Hey, tell me your story." I go, "Yeah." Because at this time, I'm like all geeked up on Mountain Dew. I'm like, "Yeah, here's my story." So tell my story. Now, I don't know this, but the girl who was originally in my first group, she is the fiance of the son of Brendan's main head guy. So like, she's tied to the staff. So she had gone and told the staff, there's this guy in the audience, listen to his story. And one of the people go, "Oh, that's a cool story." They come to ask me. It's like Brendan's right-hand lady. So they kind of start watching me. I interact with them over time. Eventually they go, "Hey, do you want to volunteer?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'll volunteer. Why not?" I came from the NFL. Not that Brendan's not great, but like, I don't have that, like, "Oh my gosh, look at these people." Oh, I don't have that in me. he's a human being, you know? So like, I never had this, like, I got to meet B feel. So I don't even think I met him for the first few events that I pretty much was like volunteering for him at. I just maybe, you know, passing and say hi, you know, but nothing big. And at one point they're like, hey, can you walk Brett into his room? Cause you're kind of a big guy, you know, like he's your security. So I walked him and talked real quick. And after about 2 years, there was a point in time when he was like, you know, we talked about a product I made for fitness. And he goes, hey, you know, like, can you make this product with me? I was like, yeah, I'll make the product. So we made a product together. Next thing I know, I'm on a stage talking about it. You know, I'm in front of 2,000 people at a high performance academy, just doing my thing. And it turned into a friendship and then colleagues. And then, so now we're good. We're buddies, man. Good friends. I coach in his growth day program, which he has. I'm in an amazing group of people that he's curated at a mastermind we do. At the same time, like I watch and learn from him as well. I'm always trying to figure out, like, because the dude's at 70 levels above me, right? And it's great because I don't want to go 70 levels up. I love my life as it is. I might want to go 20, but at the end of the day, it's not a good or a bad thing. It just is. But I have a great role model for that.
That is awesome. You've told two good stories on this show. So that's a good one as well. But I mean, how, in your opinion, I'm curious, how important are relationships to success in your life?
Relationships are the most incredibly important thing, man. If I don't have a good relationship at home, I am useless to the world. If my wife and I were fighting right now, I would be useless to you. Like that makes, I don't know if it makes sense. Doesn't make sense to everybody, but like, I'm not really good when my family isn't locked in. So like, that's big. Then relationships professionally, colleagues, friends, that's what life is supposed to be about. Like if you win alone in silence, nobody cares. One time I went bowling in San Diego before an event, and I was the only guy in. I got there early, had time to kill, and I went in and I threw a ball, 7-10 split. So I have a 7 and a 10 I got to pick up. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can get this. So I'm going to throw the ball with a hook. Hopefully it'll hit the side, shoot across. Throw the ball down, boom, goes to the right, hooks a 10, shoots it across, takes a 7 out. I am elated. I turn around. Nobody was there.
Yeah. And that's a shame.
It's a shame, right? 10 seconds later, the guy comes walking out of the back. I like, you see it? He goes, no, I didn't see it. So like I won and it was by myself. So without relationships, it's all pointless.
See, I got to tell you, if I was with a group of friends and that happened to me and they saw it, I wouldn't have celebrated. I would have turned around and act and nonchalant, like that's just a normal thing I do every day. I had to trash talk that up so much. I'd have loved that.
Yeah.
And then I would have laughed about it. You know, what, clearly a motivated guy, right? I mean, it's impossible to accomplish what you have accomplished without that. What energizes you? What fuels you? I'm curious.
Man, you know, to be honest, it's like not leaving this life with anything in me. I have this quote that I came up with years ago, and I said, the last person you ever want to meet in your deathbed is the person you could have been. And so for me, it's always this perspective internally of like, am I doing the thing I'm put here to do? Am I reaching? Am I going? Am I pushing? So that at some point when I get to my deathbed, I don't have to look myself in the mirror and say, could you have been more?
Yeah. You've mentioned you feel like there's a lot of gimmicky way. There's a lot of people out there, self-help, so-called gurus, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the gimmicky ways, I guess, that they promote that you don't think are actual? You know, I'm not asking you to name drop or anything like that, but just some of the bullshit that's out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I think the biggest thing for me I realized was there are people that have phenomenal stories, and there's a place for this. Don't get me wrong. It's a place for everybody. The things that I deem, you know, gimmicky does not mean it's not useful for somebody. It's just a perspective. So I want everybody to keep that in mind. Like, just because I'm like, this doesn't work well, or doesn't work, doesn't mean that it doesn't. It just doesn't work for me, right? But I do know that there are people that do what I do in this realm, and it's very inspirational. It's all inspiration, but it's not solution. It's hurry up and wait. It's here's the opportunity, and they don't lead you with steps of how to get there. So for me, what I like is when you can actually go to the route of saying, look, I've experienced it, I've gone through it. And that's a big thing, to have gone through it. I don't believe you should teach people how to run the race unless you've crossed the finish line.
Yeah.
If you've never run the race, or you're still running the race, be quiet and finish, and then turn around and say, here's how you run that race. That's the first one. Secondly is, it can't be all inspiration. It needs to be more strategic execution, because I can never truly give you motivation. I can never truly give you enduring drive. What I can give you are the steps to do the work, so you create that for yourself. If I give you the process, I give you the flow, it's like the difference in a moment where, let's say somebody, I don't know, $1 million goes in your bank account. It's different when I win the lottery or I blood, sweat, and tear work to get there.
Yeah.
Now, most people would say, I just want to win it. I don't want to work for it. Not the case. I don't think it's the case, because if I get it once on fluke, I have no idea how to get it again. But if I've developed a skill set while achieving it, I have such an abundance of pride and joy inside when I accomplish it, and I know how to do it again.
Well, and
So
that's
I
probably
think
why
that
most
you gotta get
people
the path.
that win the lottery go broke just within years
quick.
after. Is just, they didn't put any skin in to earn it. It didn't
No.
mean as much to them. It came easy,
You're
it
right.
leaves easy.
Yeah.
You know, I think we all, and I loved your answer in terms of what fuels you and energizes you. And I think that's probably going to be somewhat along the lines of this question, but I want to ask it in case there's a different answer. I think we all have specific ideas of what success looks like for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So how often has your idea of success matched the reality of it? And then what specifically does success look like for you?
Control. That's it. I think that there's this level where people say, like, freedom. I want freedom. I go, freedom sounds good, but there are a lot of people who are free, but they're free to choose jobs they hate. They're free to be stuck in relationships they hate. They're free to be in bodies they hate because they can make free choices. But you can think about it. If I'm in a body I hate, the problem is I can't control my appetite. If I'm in a relationship I hate, it's because I can't control my choice or control myself enough to get out of it. If I'm in a job I hate, even though I'm free to choose it, I can't control whether or not I leave because I got to pay bills. I don't have control. I have freedom, but I don't got control. And so what I value is control. Today I got up, whatever time I felt like getting up. I control my morning. If somebody does something crazy in my inbox, whatever it is, like, I can control whether or not I have to deal with them anymore. I can control it to come to your podcast. You know what I'm saying? I can control that.
We appreciate you coming.
Oh, I do. I appreciate being here. Just saying, I have control, and it allows me to live a life that is of joy to me. Now, my version of success, like, some people, it's going to be a Bentley and a Ferrari and a helicopter, and more power to you. I have no desire to put the effort and energy in for that, because I have what I want. I have control. Now, at that point, the next tick is like, all right, what's the next level of joy you can get? Well, if you have 10 hamburgers and they're nice, amazing, beautiful hamburgers, well, how many can you eat before you're full? Let's say 3. Let's say we're back in our play in the NFL. Let's say I can eat 3 hamburgers, right? Well, what do I do with the other 7? I want to feel good still. What do? I give those to other people who are hungry.
Yeah.
So for me, when I have my control and I'm living my life of abundance and joy, people go, well, once you've got that, what do? I help other people get it. How can I help somebody else have control of themselves, of their life, of their joy, of their identity? And that's where I get my next levels of joy now, is like, how do I give other people this crazy cool thing I got?
What do you think are some of the most common things that people are not doing right now that if they just did this one thing, you would advise them to start doing right away?
Having more uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah. So going back to your C step, then their ego step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even always that, though, because the thing is, I think that the uncomfortable conversation is not always one where it's like uncomfortable wrong with you. It could be uncomfortable to ask for someone to be a mentor. It could be uncomfortable to ask for someone to let you speak on a stage and share your message, right? That's still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Everything that we want is going to have this, what I call an identity wall in front of it. It's not who I am to do that thing. Hence the uncomfortable feeling. It's that discomfort that comes from me going, oh, but that's not who I am to cold call, right? Yeah. Okay. But you have the conversation, you learn the skill, you develop like a little thicker skin, and now you could do more. So I think if you could seek out and overcome more uncomfortable conversation situations, you'd find a lot more success.
So with all the advice and the steps that you provide, like when and where is the best time to start on all this?
Now?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no arbitrary day is going to be better than the other one, because we'll always find a better day because we don't want to do it, So
we're always having an excuse as to why it needs to be tomorrow.
Easily. It's easy to come by. I can give you an amazing excuse. It's so good that no one will know it's the stupid excuse. Like, that's how good people could be with their abilities to manipulate nowadays. So the only person that fails when you do that manipulation is you. because good or bad, the excuse you make, it becomes bigger than the dream. And if your excuses for any reason are bigger than your dream, your excuses will win.
And there's never a perfect time. I mean, there is a perfect time. It's immediately, because there's always going to be something else that gets in the way down the road. I mean, there is never going to be a better time than now.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. What final thoughts do you have to kind of help our audience motivate or inspire them to get moving and start now?
I mean, it's a lot. There's so many things we could say. Here's what I will tell you, though. At the end of the day, we don't need to have a catalyst moment. We don't have to have this moment in time where all of a sudden the world just, the stars align and the clouds part and down comes a little baby cub dressed in Eagles costume. You don't need something stupidly weird. It's like, this is why I chose. I think one day, like me, I just woke up and looked in a mirror. I think that's all you need.
Yeah.
It's the moment that you actually realize that you're not okay. And if you could start with that, if people could take a look at their life and go, you know what? I am not where I want to be. Great. Now we go do something.
Yeah. I think your moment of clarity, I guess, when you looked into that mirror, is a very powerful thing. I mean, not everybody, there's a lot of people down and out, but for you to wake up, I'll say this, and I don't mean it not speaking lightly, but the night before, it sounds like you had a fun time, or at least it was at the time. So a lot of people might wake up and be like, yeah, all right. But for you to have that shift, I know you're a man of faith. So something there made you look in that mirror, right? And be like, it's got to change. And I just love that moment that you described.
Yeah.
So, man, I got to thank you for a great interview here. Anthony Trucks, everyone. If you have not read his book, you need to buy it now. I want you to go to identityshiftbook.com. I said that correctly, correct?
Yes, you did.
Identityshiftbook.com. Check out his new book, buy it. You can also go to Move Crush Count. One thing we'll do is we'll put that link on move.crush.count.com as well, so people can access it either way and get there for you. But I think it's a powerful message. I love the way you break it out. Like I am a book reader. I am religious on that. And I like books that don't just tell me the what and the why, but tell me the how.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like when people get into specific steps on this is how it's done. And so make sure you check that out. I also want to thank the MCC Nation for tuning in today. Once again, go to move.crush.count.com. I want to thank J&L Marketing for sponsoring everything. Make sure you follow us on all the channels, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and get YouTube, obviously, and get notifications on all upcoming episodes. You're on all the channels, right? So what are some of your, give us your Instagram and your Facebook. How do people find you? What's the easiest way besides the internet?
Pretty simple. Instagram is going to be at Anthony Trucks. Yep. YouTube's Anthony Trucks. Everything's Anthony Trucks, man. That's my name. And besides my son, the only person with the name. So
it's a great name for a football player, by the way.
It worked for linebacker.
Yeah, it does. That's awesome. Yeah. All right, buddy. Thanks again. And thanks again for coming on Move Crush Count. Everybody have a great day.